Let's make a jelly roll stocking. You're going to need a total of 20 fabric strips, 18 for the panel and 2 for the binding. I am using 2.5 wide by 44 inches long fabric strips from a specific jelly roll that I got on Amazon, and I will link that for you. I created fabric tubes like I do with my jelly roll rugs and other creations by using batting and the fabric and folding it and sewing it down the side to create these fabric tubes. I am using a zigzag stitch to sew these together. I am using settings 5 and 2.5 on my machine. I'm going to sew up all of the 18 strips, the tubes here that I made. I'm going to sew them in sets of 4. I'm essentially building a rectangular jelly roll rug, and so often when we make these, you will find that it's easier to do these strips in sets to keep them more straight. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm sewing in sets of 4, 3, 2, whatever bits here to make up to my 18 here. And what I found that really helps here, you can see I have something over here on the left, right past my hand. And I'm using a canvas, just anything that's flat, like a book or something. And I'm putting it right here, right after my machine. You can see where the fabric is coming off. And what this is doing is giving the fabric something to rest up against so that it goes straight. I have found that this has helped me a lot with making these and keeping them straight. I have seen a significant difference when I'm making these by just having something off my machine just right there and catching it as it comes off. It helps keep it really straight. As you can see, as it's still going on the side there, that it's going off straight. So if you have a book or anything, I've even used jelly rolls, like the whole roll, setting them over there. You just need something to catch it to help keep it, because otherwise it wants to curve. And while sewing in the sets helps, or even like they say to alternate directions and stuff with sewing when you're adding them, this has been the one thing that has been consistent, and you can see how straight they are. And that's not messing with them or anything. That's just how they come after sewing it, with having just something flat right there. And I just move it a little bit to adjust with each one. So I do this as I'm creating and adding and making my sets of 2, 3, or 4 that I'm making to build this panel, essentially like a little rectangle rug. Here is a panel of 4, and you can see how nice and straight it is. So once I get done adding all the strips together like that, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to take all the little sections that I made that look like this, and I am going to sew those all together to create the one large panel. So when you're sewing these together using your zigzag stitch, you want to make sure that they're just gently pressed up next to each other. You don't want them to be overlapped or mismatched by any means. You want them to just gently lay next to each other. This allows the zigzag stitch to catch on both sides, connecting the pieces together. Once I have all the sections put together into the one big panel, I'm going to be ready to cut out my stocking template. The stocking template is included in my printable PDF tutorial on my website at christieshandmadecreations.com. Now with this size, you can get 2 stockings out of one of these. So you can get 2 here, and then you can, to get the vertical here, the vertical look, so you would just put them here and up there, and you're just going to trace along it and cut it out. Now if you want the diagonal like this, now the way that I figured out how to do this was to cut this into 2 pieces like this, and then you're going to sew those 2 together to create one panel. So let me show you here. So see, this fits 1, so you'll be able to get 2 full sizes like that if you want them vertical. But I wanted my strips to be diagonal, so I decided that this was the way that I was going to do it so I could get the diagonal strips. So in order to do that, I had to take off that piece there. I later cut it off, and then I'm just going to use that little stock and then be able to create 2. And then by doing that, I take these 2 pieces and then I sew them together like this. I use the zigzag stitch and I sew it together. And then what I do is I put the template on top at a diagonal to figure out where it is that I want those strips to be diagonally. So once you figure that out, you're going to trace it and cut it. And what I did was I added an extra inch up at the top to allow so I can add that fluff design top later. I'll show you that. So see, I cut it off and I'm going to do a diagonal. But you want to make sure that you leave enough room so that you can have 2 diagonals. Now, if you're like me and you're not sure which way you want to do it, you could even do two different ones. So I did a diagonal and a vertical for this one. So this is what I did here. So I could see how it turned out because I wasn't sure which one I was going to like. And it's funny because I totally thought I was going to love the diagonal, and I was like, I have to do a diagonal, right? But then I did the vertical. After I did it, I was like, you know what? I think I like the vertical. So, options. I love to have options, you guys. So there's technically like 3 different ways. You can either do 2 with the diagonal, 2 with the vertical, or a vertical and a diagonal. So once you have them all cut out, you're going to go ahead and sew all the way along the edge just to make sure that you secure everything, since how we just cut it up. After you get done going around the whole outside of both of the stockings, it's time to add the binding. Now, I just used 2 of the jelly roll strips and I cut them in half this way so that they're only 1.25 inches wide. And that's what I'm making to create my binding by folding it. I'm going to show you how I did that. All right, so to create your own binding, you're going to need an iron, and all we're doing here is we're going to fold in the ends into the middle like this, kind of like what we do when we are making our jelly roll tubes here, but without the batting. So we're going to go ahead and we're folding the edges both into the middle like this. It is a little bit of a pain, but once you get it started here and you get the iron going, you're good to go. This material was a little bit tricky. Cotton always works best, but this one was a little bit polyester and a little bit silky, so I was a little nervous on what temperature to put it on and stuff, so I didn't want to burn it. But, ironing, so much fun, right? So then after you fold the sides into the middle like that, then you're just going to fold it in half. And then this gives us a nice tucked in little edge to go all the way around our stocking. So I'm going to show you here what it looks like up close. So here it's just a tiny little strip. One strip cut in half goes all the way around the edge of these stockings. So if you want to do a thicker one and not cut it in half like what I did, you could go ahead and use 2 jelly roll strips. So now what I'm going to do is sew it on. So this is what it's going to look like once it's sewn on. So to sew this thin one on, what I'm doing is I'm taking it and putting it print side down on the back, because if you want a front or a back, it doesn't really matter. But I'm doing it on the back, and I'm going to go ahead and sew down that first line there, that first little fold you can see that we made. I'm using my clips to secure it down to help me a little bit, and then once I take it to my machine, I'm going to sew all the way down that little edge there using that first fold that I did with my iron as a guide, as you can see right in here. That's what I'm doing, trying to get it as close as I can. Binding is not my favorite. Now, bias tape, the stretchier kind here, would probably be a little bit better if you want to use that. But like I said, I wanted to have the fabric to match, so I've just been making my own and using the jelly roll strips. So it still works out fine in my opinion. It works out all right. So I just take my time and I go all the way around the edge like this, trying to get it as good as you want, because what you're going to be doing is flipping it here, and when you flip it, you want it all to be as even as possible. So that's what I'm doing here, getting it right to the edge and then trying to follow that fold line down around the sides. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that all the way around, and I'm doing this for both my stockings. Here is a nice straight view. You can see how it's all coming together and what I'm doing there. All right, so I didn't sew them together to start off with. What I did was I'm flipping it back here and adding it to the print sides like this. And what that's going to do, it's just going to tuck it in so I don't have a raw edge connected. It's going to be folded. So that's what I do when I'm joining my little strips together. I like to do just whatever is the most simplest for me, and I can continue on sewing and getting my project done. Now it's all sewn on, and you can see here I have to flip it around. So we're going to flip it, and we're going to tuck all that binding and just flap it over the sides like this. And then what we're going to do is to make sure that we're going to go in and we're going to fold it, because there's another fold in it. We're going to make sure that it's tucked under so you don't have that raw cut edge. It's the folded edge that we did and ironed in the beginning steps when we were making it. So it'll be nice and finished, and we're going to sew all the way around it. So up close, I'll show you here. See how it's all folded? You can see the lines from when you ironed it, and you're just going to tuck it and roll it over the side like this. Clip it to secure it if you need to, and then I'm going to go in and sew it. It is a little bit tricky, I found. There's probably different methods. I'm not a pro with binding, you guys, by any means, but it gets the job done. I have done different stitches, but I'm just doing a straight stitch with this. I have done zigzag, and I thought that's cute. I like it too as well. But since how the pattern's already busy, I didn't bother doing that. When I have more solid patterns, I tend to like to do that because I think the zigzag stitch kind of, I guess, covers up and makes it so that it's not as noticeable if your straight stitching is a little wonky, which mine is. That's why I use a seam guide often, because I just don't like the way it comes out. Often I rush, and it's just kind of difficult, you know, to get those straight stitches sometimes. So maybe a zigzag stitch would be helpful in this step. I would make it as tiny as possible, maybe. I don't know, you know, it's whatever you want to do, but that's just my own preference here. So you can see as I'm going along, I'm just little by little tucking it and making the fabric go where I want it and making sure that it's as even as possible. So here's what it looks like, all sewn up and done. Both sides you can see. And I chose a bold border. That's just what I wanted to do to make it tie in with it. I like having that bold border. Next up, I'm going to be making that fluffy top of the stocking. I found this Sherpa fleece at my Walmart, and all I'm doing is cutting some pieces. So I'm using that stocking template that I printed out from my tutorial on my website, and I'm just tracing it here. And I'm going to need 2 pieces. So after I get done tracing though, I realized that you have to make sure also that you have enough for a seam allowance. So like when I'm sewing this, if I cut that line, then that line is where I'm supposed to be sewing. So you want to keep that in mind as you're doing this. So I went ahead and measured 1/2 inch, so I had more than enough room after I cut the material. So that's just what I did. So that's just something to consider when you're cutting out these things, is where you have to sew it. I will say I was so mad when I did this. I ended up so you're supposed to, you know, do like the print side, well with this the fluffy sides together, right? So I did one side in, and then underneath, like, or one was reversed and the other one was the right way, and I had to completely rip it out, and it was such a pain because of the thread getting stuck with this. Oh my gosh. So don't do that. Make sure you double check before you go to sew it, both right sides together with this, because we're going to inside out it. So I went ahead and I sewed 3 sides, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to add a cardboard piece, or you could add batting or something like that, but I wanted something to add a little bit more stability, because you can see it's just material. Even though it's fluffy, it doesn't have a lot of stability, and it was going to go on top of my stocking, and I wanted to have more firmness. So I cut out a piece of cardboard, and I'm just tucking it in. So that's why I did the 3 sides, and then I'm going to put it inside here, and then I'm just going to finish by folding it in so that there's no raw edge and sewing along the top. There's probably other ways to do this. I'm not sure. It's just what I came up with. So if you have other ideas, you know, totally go for it. Do it. Use different material, whatever you may have on hand or whatever you think would look cute. Totally do that, you guys. These are your creations too. Now, I'm using these as door hangers, like decorations to hang. So I wanted to have a hook on the back. So to do this, I had some scraps left over after cutting. And what I'm doing is I'm just seam ripping them so that I can get one little fabric tube. And I'm going to use these as the backs of my, on the backs of these stockings as hooks. Now, if you want, you can use twine or ribbon or whatever you would like, but I just like, you know, using the stuff that I have. So this is what I came up with to do. Seam ripping is so fun, isn't it? Even harder when you're trying to videotape, I tell you. So there, I'm ready. So I did 2 of those because I have 2 stockings, and this is what it's going to look like. Now, you could sew this together, but I think it's way too thick for my machine, and I didn't want to hand stitch it. So I am using hot glue. I think hot glue is perfectly acceptable for this. It's a light craft and hanging, and I think it will do well with the glue. So I'm super gluing that about inch that I added to the top so that I would have the same size when I was making this. And that's all I'm doing, just gluing, and I'm going to add the top just a little bit over the side like this. That's how I wanted to have it. I press it down, and then I'm going to go back in and just make sure that I have enough glue in all the right areas so that it's nice and secure, you know? That's just what you do when you're crafting. Use a lot of glue. Went over to the back too and just made sure that all the edges were nice and secure with my hot glue as well. So that way, you know, we don't have any issues with it popping off or anything like that. Next, I'm adding the little hook that I created using the tube as well. I'm just gluing this one on as well. I think it's going to be fine with the hot glue, but you could go in and add some hand stitching if you'd like, whatever you think. I will mention though, when I was doing this, I glued it right here. I went back and added a little bit glue halfway up, because when I went and put it on my door, my fluffy stocking top flopped a little. So that's just something to think of as you're doing this. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh no. You could also put the hook up higher too if you wanted, so it hangs you know, on that hook a certain way. That's something when I've been making these hangers to think about too, how you want to see it as it's hanging. So here I have my second one, and I'm using it too as well. I'm just going to go here on my second stocking that I made, just to show you the back, because they're two different looking ones, just where I decided to put it. And like I said, you could put it up at the top too, where, you know, it doesn't matter. It's wherever you want it. Maybe take it to your door, see where you'd like it first and stuff. All right, here's what it looks like with everything all glued on and secure. See how it's flapping? I told ya. So now we have the final look here. I'm really excited for the way these came out. It's just so festive and so cute and simple. Here's what it looks like on a door. I love it. I really can't decide which one I like. I think I like the vertical. I can't believe I'm saying this because I really wanted the diagonal, but I think I like the vertical. But maybe add a little fluff at the top, you know? They are so cute. I hope that this tutorial was easy to follow. I do have the written instructions on my website, Chrissy'sHandmadeCreations.com, if you need those as well. I thank you guys for watching.